this thing. There you go. Right. Let's get my show notes up. That would help. The right ones. Oh dear. Let's get the right ones up. There we go. And what number is 702? Right. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic this week in WordPress and Tech. This is episode 702. We got a great panel. I've rustled up some great stories. I'm back for my European odyssey, my journey that never seemed to end in various European airports, spending Groundhog Days just trying to get onto a plane. Got a great guest, a great supporter of the show. He's a major sponsor. We got Craig. Craig, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the tribe?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me. I'm Craig Hewitt. I'm the founder of Castos, or a podcast hosting platform. Also own and manage the Seriously Simple Podcasting kind of suite of plugins. And been a podcaster for a long time. It's great to be back on the show. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Craig. Got my friend Sally. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
Sure. I'm Sally Getch, the WP fangirl wearing the cloak of invisibility today.
There we go. It's very useful. I got my friend Andrew Palmer, the Andrew, my Thursday host. He has returned. Bit of a trooper because he's not 100%, still recovering from Porto WordCamp. Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself to the tribe?
I caught COVID as well as caught up with a load of my friends and made some new friends at WCU. I'm good. Yeah, that's it. I'm sort of not 100%, but it is 31 degrees centigrade in this country currently, and I'm hot.
It's hardly ever heard of actual heat and sunshine in England.
What's going on?
Yes. I've got Spence with us.
That's 87.8 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's hot, man.
Just in case the American audience.
Took you that long to figure that out?
I just have to say, like, I grew up, I'm still in Chicago, and when you speak to people from Great Britain, like anything over 75 is like 120 here, because like you're not equipped for that kind of temperature.
No,
We're
So
not.
yeah.
We're definitely
Please,
sunshine.
if they go a week without rain in the
Like
summer, they declare a hose pipe ban.
Right? It's like Northern California and Southern California, but 26 Celsius is your limit. This is Spence from, I can't remember where I'm at today, WPLaunchify.com, I'd say.
Yes, that's
That'll
right.
do
It's
it.
hard to tell where you are, isn't it? Before we go into the great stories that we're going to be discussing, we got an important point of the show. Got some great messages from my major sponsors. We'll be back in a second, folks. We're coming back. I like to point out we've got some great special offers from our sponsors, plus recommendations around WordPress, plugins and services. I've tried them all. I recommend them. Want to find all these goodies? Go over to WP-Tonic/recommendations. So let's go. Got a frog in my throat. Let's go straight into it, panel. Gutenberg Editor now in testing on Tumblr. Day 1 web apps. Well, this is linked to WordPress, WordCamp Europe, and the great leader, Matt Mauweg, saying that he saw Gutenberg as being bigger than WordPress. Andrew, what did you think of that statement from the great leader?
Well, it's not the first time he's said it, frankly, is it? He keeps on repeating himself. So that's what that's how salespeople work. They work in parrot fashion. So you'll know if you've ever been sold to. It's repeat, say again, repeat, confirm. And so he's basically just confirming his desire that React and the block themes and all this kind of stuff, the block editor will appear everywhere. So that's one way that Matt Mullenweg will conquer the world, rather than just WordPress being 80% of the web. It'll be, I did it with the block editor, everybody. But he also confirms that in my, I'm going to say what my recommendation is anyway. It's his interview. He was interviewed by Nathan Wrigley via the WP Tavern Jukebox, and the last 15 minutes of that podcast is a must listen. It's incredible. It just shows that he is totally looking towards the future, and is very enthusiastic about it, about AI, about the block editor, and about where the web's going to go. So yeah, I think he's right. You know, if he wants it to be everywhere, then if anyone can make it happen, he can.
There you go. So what do you reckon, Craig? I totally agree with Andrew, but for some reason, I suppose being there and seeing him reply to a question, it kind of was right in your face that he really sees Gutenberg as something bigger than WordPress.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like Andrew mentioned, this is how it's been since like not the beginning, but since maybe the block editor was launched. Is it is its own, you know, kind of package and repo, and you can embed it in your own tool and use the block editor outside of WordPress. And to see it going to things like Tumblr makes all the sense in the world. You know, to me, like to the stretch to like AI is like I'll have to listen to the episode because I don't draw that line kind of intuitively, but yeah, I mean, I think it makes all the sense in the world. Like if you're a content tool, to have the actual place that people are writing the content be extensible into other things, because that's what makes any tool so powerful, right? If you think of it like WordPress as itself is not super powerful, but it's the themes and plugins that you can extend it with. And if you take that one a little further to be like the actual editor where you're writing the content and making that available in other tools, then I think like the contributions to it in an open source kind of platform just like give it a lot more potential, I would say.
Yeah, Spence, I interviewed Brian Calds last week, and he was saying that when he goes into a Word or Google Doc, he actually automatically kind of thinks that it should work like Gutenberg. I thought that was quite a salient.
Shows where he spends most of his time.
Yeah, you know, in WordPress. So it's not too far-fetched, I think. Or what do you reckon, Spence?
Yeah, I know. I enjoyed the interview with Brian, and Brian and I get along really well now because publishing over at Master WP, it's like I'm going to say something that's actually quite supportive of this concept, although I do agree with Craig that I don't see it stretching into AI because of another reason, is that like the secret to success, if we look at history, like the gold rush, okay? The people who went out and found gold and then set up towns and did various things, they did fine. But the real people who made the money, the ones who made the tools that they sold to people. And so in the early days of the web, before WordPress became a hot thing, I was in that sort of freemium SaaS space, and everybody thought that open auth and all of the cross-platform publishing capability was going to be the savior. But the truth is quite different, because if you look at the railroads like Carnegie and the oils industry like Rockefeller, the ones who built the infrastructure that got there first and that everybody started to rely upon, Google, are the ones that win. So there's a lot of business logic in improving Gutenberg and the block editor and then getting it in as many places as possible. And I'm going to tie this together with my other like point, which is something I published on the Master WP, but also is like everybody talking about. Ignore the full site editor for a minute. It's a distraction, and just focus on Gutenberg. And there's a ton to love, right? Like I drank Sally's Kool-Aid a long time ago by now, and I'm fully into it. Elementor and Divi are, you know, distant memories to me now. So if we can continue to work as a team through WordPress to get that Gutenberg super slick and awesome, and this version 6 was a big improvement with some of the, you know, sidebar capabilities, then I see great potential. Do I see it, you know, showing up in my VR headsets that are, you know, coming from Google, Apple, whomever? Not likely. And I don't also see it showing up in my new electric car from Toyota, Porsche, or anybody, because years ago we talked about, I see the entire metaphor of the way we do stuff on the screens changing. Like a couple months ago, I talked to you about that guy that was so turned on how he could do his voice editing, combine it with like generating whatever. I see us all moving to a metaphor where we're just talking to our computers and shit's getting done more than typing and dragging stuff around the screen. And likewise, consuming it. If you go for a walk, I like that I can hear it in my headset and interact with it versus like, you know, I have to walk like a zombie. So I think that's the thing. There will always be an interface that you look at and type on, but that a large consumption will happen elsewhere. So I don't think it's going to go into virtual reality, but it definitely will happen. I think there's a great success potential in.
Yeah, but before
I
I
also
ask that,
kind of just to piggyback on that, like I don't see a use case for using the Gutenberg editor outside of WordPress. As someone who, like, we have a SaaS application and like we wouldn't put Gutenberg editor to like build our podcast websites or something like that. Like, and I don't see other tools used like Notion, or you mentioned Google Docs. Like I just don't see another tool using the Gutenberg editor as their native content building
well,
foundation.
Craig, I think you upset Andrew so much.
I think so.
He's left.
I think so.
He's
Yeah,
left.
he disappeared.
Craig,
Well,
I think I want to give Craig an example to think and maybe how you react, because I agree with what you're saying about imposing. Everybody wants their own walled garden, but I think of Tiny MCE.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Tiny MCE became an intermediary tool, because if you're not big enough to build it yourself, but you're also small enough, like, what am I going to do? There's somewhere in between that, like, that is a replacement for, right? So
right. I mean,
That's a
Notion
perfect
has its
analogy, I
own
think, yeah.
blocks, and so do a lot of other tools, and they're unlikely to replace those with Gutenberg. But places that don't have a block editor yet could get a bit of a start on something by using this. I mean, I personally find it kind of amusing that they were working on Gutenberg for Drupal before Gutenberg for Tumblr. So. But yes,
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. It is, some of the rhetoric about, Gutenberg eating the world, it is sort of like all the rhetoric about, Jetpack is the reason for the spread of WordPress. This is true in some dimension of Matt Mullenweg's mind that may or may not have any relationship to reality.
Yes, let's hope Andrew rejoins. I think he got so upset by Craig's statements that he just had to go. Let's go on to story 2. It's from a friend of the show, a
Poor
former
Andrew.
He was
Sorry?
overwhelmed by the heat, that's all.
Exactly, or the COVID, or combination of both. Hopefully he will return. So let's go on to story 2 from a friend of the show, a former regular panelist. Try to get him back, but he's so busy, but hopefully he will return one day. And that's from the Viking, Morton. Do our ALs dream of freedom? So, Sally, this is a response from the Google engineers, or some of them, saying that their Bolt has become conscious. It's a living bin. It sees, it feels, it knows. So I think Morton got a bit upset by that statement. It's like typical Morton. It's all nonsense. What did you reckon about? What do you reckon about the Google engineers and what Morton had to say about it, Sally?
Well, of course, there's a long history of both fiction and philosophy about, like, what the heck is consciousness when it's at home anyway. And the old idea of the Turing test and so on. And, I think based on what Morton says, it's less worrying that members of the public might have thought this AI was sentient, depending on, their interactions with it and its responses to questions, because first, most people don't have very much understanding of the limits of AI. And second, a lot of us tend to anonymize everything around us anyway. I mean, I give all my computers names and sometimes attribute personalities to them. And I know.
I thought the cats only had that.
Oh, the cats have their own personalities. I mean, I may attribute thoughts to them that probably don't have a lot of connection to what they really think or how they think, but they have their own personalities. They are, animate beings. It's less worrying that the average member of Joe Public, especially somebody old enough to have lived through seeing things that were science fiction when we were children, turn into reality, like holding up a palm-sized device and talking on it, and plenty of other things. Although, no flying cars. I personally do not want flying cars. We're bad enough with driving cars on a flat surface.
Just driving Nevada roads. You see that regularly anyway.
Amazon delivering via drones.
Right,
actually happening right now, right?
So, Craig, love Morton. He's a friend. I can ring him up. He'll speak to me. He'll tell me that I'm an idiot regularly, which is probably right. But I've got to have a little dig at old Morton. He wants it both ways. I'm a mystic. I believe, I'm not going to go on, but I believe in the supernatural. He's a rationalist, but he wants it both ways. He seemed to get a bit pervy about the idea. If you're not a mystic, you just believe it's just. You can't have it both ways. I think he wanted it both ways. I think it's quite plausible that the Google engineers, by accident, have got some form of consciousness going out there. I think it probably is going to happen accidentally. What do you reckon, Craig?
Yeah, I think your comment about it happening accidentally is probably spot on, and we won't know it right at first is how I would guess it will happen. If it's smart, it would know that it shouldn't let us know that it's sentient and conscious. So I think that's part of the, if you're the Skynet kind of worry, or you worry that it will be so smart that we won't know that it's kind of too late. And I think that a machine like that being so smart that it can build airplanes to take over the world and stuff, it's probably not going to happen, right? It's going to be just a smarter computer at first, and that I think that it probably will actually be a pretty non-threatening situation, right? I'm sure it will happen in my lifetime. I'm 42. I'm sure it will happen in the next few years, and there's probably degrees to this, right? It's not just an absolute kind of binary thing, but that things will have some degree of kind of consciousness and thinking for themselves, and past the point where we are kind of guiding computers to think. I think the challenge will be us knowing it, which kind of is what Mort is talking about.
Yeah, so Spence, I had a bit of exchange with Morton on, and he got a bit sniffy with me, which he normally does. You idiot. So the thing is, if it passed the Turing test, does it really matter? Because, he got a bit sniffy in this article that it's just it's a bolt, it's not AI. I had a chat with Heather's husband, who's way beyond my pay scale. He is an AI expert. My understanding, we don't even understand the mathematics behind AI. We don't even really know why it works. That's what he was telling me. So it's all a bit of a mystery. So why do you think Morton got so sniffy about the Google engineers thinking that they've got the real McCoy, Spence?
I'm not sure what happened with the other conversation you're referring to, but with Morton, I believe his point is that the term or the parable is crap in, crap out, right? So the danger is that the AI engine is now taking input by essentially data coming from the internet that could be loaded with human biases and racism and mistruth.
Never.
We have talked about stories where, if you train a bot on the behavior of human beings, it just becomes more and more horrible in its personality.
If, again, I won't be political, but imagine you took the worst politician in recent history and you use that as the data source for programming the bot.
There's so many of them.
They will control the future of humanity. That would not be a movie I want to be an actor in. And so I think his point is, it doesn't matter whether the machine is really thinking. It only matters that the machine is going to be independently responsible for a lot of things that heretofore only humans did, and there was always the safety net of at least some chance of convincing a human they were wrong or getting them fired or whatever. But like Skynet, as soon as this program with crap AI kicks in and it gets control over things like, the kill human switch or whatever, that it's going to just make all these decisions for itself based upon logic that stems from bad data about what is really a human way of thinking of things. And it's really unfortunate because it's like he says that we don't really, and you said Heather's husband, we don't really understand the amplification effect when you put A and B together in an AI. Sometimes for fun, I'll watch these channels where there's this guy who does science experiments for regular people. And he'll take like 2 innocuous chemicals, things that you could put in your eye safely by themselves, and he'll put them in a test tube, and then he'll drop like a piece of titanium in it, and it like turns to like dust and then explodes the whole studio. And you realize like we have no clue what we're doing here with AI. And immediately upon it existing and turn loose, it's going to just spread into all places we never expected. So I think that's where many people are concerned.
Yeah, but that's kind of
Yes,
interesting.
well, I mean, this engineer was trying to hire a lawyer to declare personhood and autonomy for this bot, and I think if the engineer was convinced about that, that's much more worrying than if people who know nothing at all about the science, and you wonder, is this person just doing it to like wind the rest of us up? Or prove a point about certain ridiculousnesses of what constitutes a person. I mean, if we have personhood for corporations, then why not for chatbots?
Yeah, I'm going to do some blatant name dropping now, panel, to make myself look Englishly intelligent. So be prepared. So, Andrew hopefully returned. He's router. He had router problems, AI problems. To get back to it, I think the problem in Moulton and people like Moulton is I was a study of Gregory Bateson and cybernetics, and Olson, Ludwig Wittgenstein, what are the fundamentals of language? And then you mix it up with Gregory Bateson and his ideas around cybernetics. Am I dropping enough names, panel, to make myself look reasonably intelligent, or I'm still lacking? So
throw in a few more, just
I'm tempted to throw a few more names. But basically,
did you have lunch this week with Stephen Hawking, like last week?
No, I was tempting. But the point I'm trying to make is this idea: we have this Platonic attitude that what goes in is just in our mind, and we're kind of separate vessels, and then through language, where there's this whole idea that what we consider ourselves is partly in ourselves, but also a construct of the communication between various things. And what we sense of ourselves is not totally a concept of what goes in, what we feel between our eyes. There's a whole science around that. And I don't understand why our beloved Moulton really said, "Oh, it can't be it's just a bolt. It cannot have any conception of it being real consciousness." I find that hilarious myself. I'm having a real go at him to provoke him to come back on the show, really. That's my sneaky thing. I think that's enough of me rabbiting on. The panel just weren't taking it, were they? I can see this blank look on their faces. I thought it was quite good panel, but there we go. We're going to go for our break. We'll be back. We've got some extra great stories. See you in a few moments. We're coming back. I've lost one of the panel already. That I blame that on Craig, though. That's down to him. I've got to blame somebody, Craig. Before we go on to the other great stories, I wanted to say I do a great newsletter. I write the editorial myself. Anything that comes into my mind, I just put it on. But it's normally based on the panel show. I probably have a pop at Morton at that as well. Got to provoke him back on the show, haven't I, somehow? But there we go. To get that, all you have to do is go to WP-Tonic/newsletter, sign up for it, and it'll be in your inbox every Monday. What more could you ask for? So let's go on. Elementor laying off dozens of employees. So, Craig, is it getting a bit nervous in Castos? Are some of the staff thinking they're for the chop? Are you gonna rid the axe and chop 20% off your team? It seems to be the in thing now. Don't act like sheep if you run a SaaS business. Everybody's chopping 20% now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you look just, the broader market that affects things like venture capital, which affects valuations, and some companies that aren't entirely bootstrapped, their ability to raise more money, but also their customers' ability and willingness to pay for their products and services. I think that there's a very real change that we've seen in the last couple of months, and it probably is affecting everybody, right? I haven't talked to anybody who says, "Yep, it's business as usual. We're growing just as fast as we were 6 months ago." And so, yeah, I don't think that Elementor laying off folks, or you see other companies, having layoffs is wrong, because I can imagine it's a change in relation to the reality of their business these days.
Yeah, but the thing that gets me, Craig, if you can knock off 20% of your staff just like that, maybe you were hiring the wrong people at the beginning.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think that
so
certainly nobody wants to lay anybody off.
The fact
right?
they are laying off 20% of their staff that they think they can do without. They may or may not be, correct about that, because then what usually happens is they expect the remaining people to take over. Now, part of what's interesting about this story is that last week we were just talking about Elementor acquiring Stratic. And there is usually a period after an acquisition or a merger where some of the staff are let go because they're kind of redundant. You don't necessarily need, 2 complete marketing staffs or whatever. And some people end up, leaving because they are not that happy with the new management. But that this was so abrupt. It was kind of like, all right, wait, if you were in, facing enough financial issues to decide you're going to have layoffs, why are you also making acquisitions? Or is there some hope that adding the Stratic features, whatever plan there is for that, will help them grow?
Yeah, I've got to say, if you're watching this, and you should go over and subscribe to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel, and you can see some of the people that are watching this. Craig, who's a regular, I love this, having a little dig at EL. Don't worry, Craig, if he says anything nasty about Castos, but you sponsor me, I'm certainly not putting that out. But he's having a little dig about their updates. Well, that just goes with everything, doesn't it, Craig? It's WordPress, for God's sake. Stop being so snarty, Craig, for God's sake. So, Spence, it does. It just seems, you've taken the VC money. It seems that you're now expected. They're like sheep, aren't they? They're just cutting 20%. It'll put you in good stead, won't you? What do you reckon?
I mean, one can look at this a couple different ways. First of all, I think it would be naive for anyone to think that a venture-funded corporation in today's world really gives a hoot about people. I mean, I'm not saying that individually the CEOs don't care about human beings, but they're loyalty is to the money.
They're AI bolts now. There are no real see apart from Craig. I think Craig's virtual as well.
Like rearranging the silverware on the table is a good metaphor for, okay, you took the money to run the restaurant and you move the silverware around to get the most money from every diner. That's the thing that matters to the CEO and the management team. And so what it sounds like, although we don't have enough data, they took $50 million. They launched their cloud thing. They're trying to figure out in a economy that's vulnerable to lots of ups and down behavior at the moment. Do these extra 400 people add to the, average order profit, from our customers? And I would say the answer is probably no. Now, in a larger scheme of things, it might be nice if they were in a position to say, wow, let's keep everybody around and support their families and everything else. But like that's where the naivete comes in, because that's what somebody does that's an unusual CEO of an unusual company that has an unusual amount of capability to do it. I am not believing for 1 second that that's going to happen anytime soon, because look at things like Amazon. Like Amazon is printing money faster than Bezos or anyone can spend it, and yet they still have people trying to unionize so that people can take a piss break. I mean, that's the world we live in, and we're on TV watching things that make Watergate look like a backyard party in comparison, like 100,000-fold corruption and corporate greed and misfeasance and malfeasance. We're in that state. We're in that state of.
Let's be a bit more positive.
All right, Spence, you're the lawyer. What's the difference between misfeasance and
you're not
malfeasance?
You're attributing my conclusion differently than I mean it. I'm simply saying we, on the other side of the table, are in a world where if you have skills, you can right now go on literally LinkedIn and get yourself 3 or 4 or 5 remote jobs all at once, because the corporations are desperate for people to hire. I mean, there's literally a couple guys on YouTube I saw today that have these, remote jobs, and they're stacking them up like wood chips. So the issue is, I don't think anybody can assume that it's easy or it's normal anymore. If you go to work for a corporation, do it at arm's length, assume you could be fired at any moment, and treat them the same way they treat you. I mean,
Craig's much more compassionate. At least give you a week's notice.
Why do you want to turn it into a clutching the pearl story? Hold on. I'm calling out the host on this. Why do you need to turn this into a clutching your pearls kind of story that suddenly corporations are so amazing and human oriented?
Because I've taken enough money from them, because I'm a hypocrite. So there we go.
Come on.
There we go. I'm just having a go at you. It's entertainment. We're in the entertainment business in this show. It's quite easy. And one thing that was pointed out to me is that I have a tendency to overthink things, Craig. Surprise, surprise. And it was pointed. I had a great interview yesterday with a hosting CEO, and I asked him. I said, why are all these hosting companies buying all these plugins, Craig? Because I'm not. And he said, it's obvious, Jonathan. It costs us $40+ if you're using Google adverts or paid advertisement to bag a hosting client now. It's going up. It's just cheaper to buy these bloody plugins, get the email list and market to them from the end of days. It's just cheap. And that's all. I was trying to find some deep strategy. There is no strategy. You just buying access to possible clients. You can overthink things, can't you, Craig? Can't you?
I mean, we're not a website hosting company, but I think there's also the argument to be made, which Greg mentioned in the chat, of like Elementor, and this would be an interesting discussion, I think, is has reached their market cap. I think they definitely have not, because they're doing things like Elementor Cloud, which really expands it. And you probably see, WP Engine and Liquid Web and these all taking the same business model, which is, hey, we're not just hosting websites, but we're providing this kind of more complete solution. And I think that's really interesting, in the hosting world. And this is a tangent, but I think it's really interesting in the hosting world, where these companies are realizing, hey, we're not just a bunch of servers, but we're providing a solution to customers to solve their needs. And if they're effective at that, I think that acquisition of plugins or building a cloud-based solution is all really smart for all these companies.
I hope you and I saw that 3 years ago, and that's what I'm trying with WP-Tonic. I hope you knew that, Craig.
Yeah. I think it's really, I think it's really smart because nobody wants hosting, right? They want a website and it to do things. And if you can go to one place to get all those things, that's great as a customer.
It's working well for me, Craig. There we go.
There you
But
go.
I'm not going to. I haven't got 20% of staff
Well,
that
yes,
I can say.
given that I know people who will ask me, what the difference between their mail server and their internet connection is. Yeah, I mean, hosting happens to be a thing that's necessary for having a website, but people want the website, and they usually want the website for a reason because they want to do marketing or publish information or whatever. They mostly don't want the website for the sake of having a website.
Well, there we go.
I don't know if we want to get into the WordPress losing market share and
we touched that
discussion.
last week. We were constantly having a go at that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
It's Groundhog Day, isn't it? All right. Well, the great leader touched that Tumblr is the secret weapon. He reckons in the next month 300,000 Tumblr websites will be able to be running on WordPress. So that's he was quite upfront for the great leader, really. It was all in plain English. He was very relaxed as well, Craig. He was enjoying Porto. I love Porto. I want to go back. There we go, but there we are. On to the next story. Yes. I'm looking at the wrong thing. I apologize. It was the Facebook story. Basically, they want to become like TikTok. Well, panel, one of the reasons why I thought, it's a bit boring, really, but one of the reasons is I think Facebook, TikTok, they've really got to adopt the YouTube model to some degree where creators have a bigger cut. A lot of these platforms, and you could say Google in general, there seems to be this. The whole internet was based, and you could say the same thing about WordPress, on getting people to either provide content or do actual work for free, and then you make gobs of money from their creativeness or from their work. It's a kind of form of digital imposed slavery. But I think people are cottoning on, and I think Facebook, I think these platforms are actually going to have to pay for people's creativeness. What do you reckon, Craig? Do you think I've lost the plot, or do you think that's an upcoming trend that they're going to be forced to do?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think that we're betting big on the creator economy, right, at Castos, and really firmly believe that social media or just a platform for folks to be able to create and monetize their content directly or indirectly, even. I think if you're talking about more of the social media channel is the way that a lot of content will be going, and it makes the whole interaction a lot more transparent and kind of appropriate, rather than monetizing things with ads, to me. I think about Ahrefs announcing their own search engine that is kind of geared around this a lot, and they're very smart people and have a really great product, but that they're betting hugely on this too. I don't have an answer, but I just generally think that companies will. So
can I ask you,
supporting creators,
because you're on here, podcasting in general, what Anchor, what Spotify, RSS, open platform, but they're trying, fundamentally as part of their business model is trying to destroy that openness, aren't they? They're trying to turn an open format into a enclosed garden, aren't they? Do you think they're going to be successful? I don't think they are in some ways. Do you think they are?
Well, I think they already are, right? To some extent, they already have been quite successful. They've made a bunch of acquisitions. They are losing money on podcasting, which I think is interesting at this point.
Everyone
I think that
loses
there's a
money on
place
podcasts.
there's a place in the market for that, and there are people that really like that. It does do some good things. I think for us specifically, what it does, it creates a lot of opportunity to do the same thing, but in an open sense, right? So as Greg mentioned in the chat, no, not like Anchor and Spotify, but offering the tools to creators, but keeping it open to where creators have their have the flexibility to monetize how they want, bring things into the platform, and promote and monetize their content in or outside the platform. So I think that's the decision, is like, you can have this vertical where everything is kind of owned within a walled garden, or you can embrace the power of kind of open standards. And I mean, us personally, we're opting to the latter.
So Spence, isn't this, you got these platforms, they want all this original content. Some of them, like YouTube, gives you a bit of money, not a lot, but a little bit. A lot of them don't want to give you anything. And then you got the same thing going in WordPress. You got all these volunteers, but you think there would be some system, or am I totally naive, Spence, that you could share a bit of the love out a little bit to all these contributors? Isn't this the fundamental problem of what's this whole system? In a way, nobody wants to share any of anything out, really. They just want to suck as much out and keep it to themselves, Spence.
I actually see somewhat of that, but I'm going to say it in a different way. I have boys from 11, 18, 21. And when we talk about technology, I'm often surprised because I make my living in technology, sort of. But this whole conversation on The Verge, or whatever these companies are doing, seems to ignore the overwhelming importance of brand and the product being used in terms of who would even touch it. My kids wouldn't touch Facebook with a 100-foot pole. Okay. My friends and people of my age, Facebook is our primary channel of communicating, because we don't use Snapchat unless we get on the filters and do funny sad face thing, which is good for about 10 minutes. But otherwise, we just don't. I need to do that. If you run a business, you'll use Twitter. But I've been doing some experiments myself, trying to see how clever I can be with using TikTok. And I have to tell you, it's like grumpy old man. I've got to join it just to watch that. You on TikTok. Grumpy old man, get off my lawn kind of thing, because it comes on full blast, full volume. And while it's sort of entertaining, I actually find YouTube to have those YouTube shorts more at my speed, because YouTube. So grumpy old man, 55-year-old business person with kids, Facebook, YouTube shorts, Twitter. Okay. My kids, not going to touch that.
Can I tell you?
Of course not. That's where their parents are hanging out. Why would I tell you that?
Hold on. Let me bring it back home for the point. The point is, who's making the stuff that's popular? If I go on YouTube, I can still find people of various ages who are multimillionaires, who have, Mr. Beast, who has 100 million followers on YouTube, who literally can afford to spend $100 million on some video. And then I see other people who are making fortunes on TikTok, doing anything from shake their booty to walk the dog. But those are not the same people. So it's disingenuous. It's just false to start comparing, just because Facebook copies a feature, that somehow people are going to use it. Because
it is silly for Facebook to try to be TikTok, because people are on Facebook because they want it to be Facebook. But this is the thing that we've seen a lot, right? One platform will start something,
but they're worried about the
and
money,
everybody
Sally.
is
They're
like,
worried
oh,
about
we need that, but they don't have any strategy or reason or integration or understanding.
They're worried about the money, Sally. They need
Yes,
more money so
that.
the metaverse can be dominated by Mark. I love the line in the piece, Mark's vision. Well, most of us would say Mark's nightmare, not bloody vision.
Well, his
nightmare.
Vision is a nightmare for the rest of us, yes.
Yeah.
But then that's been true of many people over the years.
Yeah. Well, where was going to go? Oh, I'll tell you the platform that really pisses me off with their self-righteousness is LinkedIn. I'll give you an example. They're trying to become more like a social business, chatty kind of platform. They had some geezer that was having a go at gay people, kind of one of these quasar so-called religious people, and he put up something on LinkedIn having a pop at them having children. I thought it was disgusting. So I exposed him to some of my English sarcasm. Surprise, surprise panel. Guess who they banned? They banned my comment, the little cockroaches. They didn't ban his bloody post, which I thought was nauseating. That, I think LinkedIn is one of the most arsehole platforms going in a way, but I still use it, panel. What a hypocrite I am. Well, there you go. The panel's not going to... Come on, one of you. Remarkable. Spence, what do you reckon about... What about LinkedIn? Do you think they're trying to become more like Facebook in some ways?
LinkedIn?
Yeah.
Well, I've come back to LinkedIn. I cut my teeth on LinkedIn back when it was blue water, and it was very easy to have intelligent conversations. I've been publishing again there recently a lot, but with there's a couple new products like Lead Delta that I'm involved with using in the founders that help you get through the clutter. Because here's the main problem of LinkedIn. Thankfully, it has still remained free from like the usual dialogue and content that pollutes these other channels. I mean, it's mostly business stuff. There's a few people that don't realize that everything they say still is going to trace back to their work history, which I always wonder what they're thinking. But aside from that, the number one problem of LinkedIn at the moment is still people don't understand meeting a stranger. How about we go to a coffee if you want, but here's what I can do to fix your pain, versus, hi, would you say yes to meeting me? Yes. Here's my entire encyclopedia of everything about me. Because that's the problem on LinkedIn right now. If you say yes to anybody, 99 out of 100 will just dump their entire about me thing on top of you. And it's just unfortunate, because then I have to say,
yes, well, the way to keep it from being annoying is to never connect with anyone you don't actually know.
Never connect. But I'm saying, like, the point of connecting is to connect. So you just have to spend more time on LinkedIn to filter and remove. But if you do that, there are still successful connections, because I do think I would call LinkedIn your modern resume / career central, right? That's professionally, you need to have that up to date or you don't exist in the world. And it's helped me through a lot of like explaining of my origin story to people, because it is useful.
That must be interesting.
I don't publish anything there that remotely looks like a TikTok video or a YouTube short or anything, though.
Oh, well, I was looking forward to that on LinkedIn when I look at your profile.
You won't find me twerking over on LinkedIn.
Oh, well, there we go. All right, let's go on to recommendations. My recommendation, you can watch it on YouTube. It's a free documentary. It's The Fog of War. I'm amazed that YouTube allowed this to be watched. It's about the career of Robert S. McNamara. Butchered his surname, as I normally do. He was you have these people in history. In the 60s, he was the defense secretary for the US government under Johnson. And he dominated that period, really. And he was an intellectual. And it's just it's him being interviewed when he's about 85. And he knows time is really running out. So he's just honest about things. And it really, you do, by watching this from a really bright guy and somebody that really knew about power and how it works, he's totally honest about how bonkers the whole thing is, really, from beginning to end. And you realise that you're just living in madness. And you just got to do the best you can. I highly recommend it as a way of waking yourself up. You need to watch this. So, Craig, we gave you a bit of time, Craig. Have you got anything you want to recommend to the tribe?
Yeah, so mine is a little more centered around kind of our world. We had a webinar a couple weeks ago for like how to kind of effectively promote your podcast, and it was just it was by far like the most engagement, most positive feedback we've gotten on a webinar so far. So wanted to just to mention that Matt from our team post that on YouTube, and we'll try. I posted the link in the chat here. So folks who are into podcasting or want to get better at promoting their stuff, check it out.
Yes, Uncle Spence, please make sure it's in the Slack channel for me. Because Craig will get very annoyed with me, and being he's a major sponsor, I can't have him upset, Spence. I can upset you, but I'm not going to upset Craig. Not Craig. We got here. All right. So Craig's another Craig. He's on fire. He's had a little go. So Sally, got a recommendation for the tribe?
Yes, I do. Actually, as kind of a response to the story about AI, there's a novel by Annalee Newitz, who is a journalist, called Autonomous. And it is a really interesting and also very entertaining fictional exploration of what consciousness is, what autonomy is, what selfhood is, and it's absolutely worth reading. And I can't wait for the for the next thing this author produces, because it is one of the more original things that I have read. So it's called Autonomous, and you can get it in all the formats, including audio. So
there we go. Sounds fascinating. I'll give it a butcher's. So, Uncle Spence, got a recommendation for the tribe?
There's a new plugin that's free in the repository. It has a pro version called Doubly cross-domain copy paste for WordPress. And although I haven't given this a full rundown, I intend to, because it allows you, in theory, it seems, to take stuff and literally go, maybe you have 1 site, 2 sites, 5 sites, go like, I need to take this whole section or all these products or all these WooCommerce, related orders and stuff, and I want to move them over to the other site. So I'm not 100% sure of all these features in line. It looks like a couple of them are coming soon, but it's an interesting concept, and it's something that we've done in other ways before. You do like an import-export with the block builder. I've set up like patterns.launch flows where you can take all of that type of stuff. But aside from normal database migration or XML files and stuff, this looks like an interesting way that you could set up several businesses for yourself or your clients, which is something we do frequently, where I have 20 clients with all the same websites and I need some new feature to put in all those websites. Well, this might be faster than trying to do it programmatically or something.
Yeah, I've decided I'm going to ask Craig to join the show next week. I'm going to outreach to Craig. He's been putting these fantastic little comments, arky as they are. Yeah, he's deserved to come on the show. I'm that desperate for panelists now. It's coming during the summer sea panel, and it's hard to get.
Is this
people.
Greg or Craig?
He means Greg, I
Greg.
think.
Yes,
Our lively commenter.
Yeah, you have to come on the show.
Live audience.
Yeah, there we go.
Be careful what you wish for, Greg Hyatt.
I had a really great, I think it was sarcastic towards me. I was online and somebody said about the Friday show. He said, it's enormously entertaining, Jonathan, but I have no idea what the hell it's about. And I took it as a comment, because all it's about is to entertain people. It's quite simple, folks. It's there to entertain. That is its only purpose. It's not that hard to, I think Sally and Spence understand. Even Craig understands that it's its only purpose. Thank you, panel. I know we lost one, but he couldn't get back on. But I thought we had a pretty good show. We will be back next week with another great panel, another selection of WordPress internet stories, sarcasm, pokes at those that need a poke at. We will be back soon. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.